you've now gone back. Big Fish has cast you to take the role of Sarah Jane Smith. How did that come about? When did you first hear about this?
So it was a couple of years ago now. I just got an email from David Richardson, who's the producer, sort of saying, is this something that you'd be interested in? Would you like to do it? And initially it was just to do this one story, the lost story, the return of the Cybermen audio. And I called my dad and I said, oh, do you think I should do this? Is it going to be a bit odd, a bit dodgy? Will the fans accept it? Would mum like it? And he said that he thought that it would be fine, and just go and have fun. And so it kind of all kicked off from that. And then when I got down to the studio on the first day, they kind of told me, David again, the producer, that they were thinking of doing more with Sarah, and would I like to to continue to do it? So I said, oh yeah, of course, how lovely. So it all flowed quite naturally, really.
What was it like meeting Tom Baker? Did you know him beforehand?
Yeah, a little bit. It's strange with Tom because I think Tom always feels. I mean, I shouldn't obviously speak for him, but whenever you meet him, I guess you guys have met him as well. He kind of brings the character with him as well, and I think there's an element where Tom feels that there's this expectation of how he should come across. So whenever I meet him, I feel a bit as if I'm meeting him for the first time every time, even though I've met him quite a few times now. But I think when you just sit and chat with him, he does have obviously a lovely human side, as we all do, talking about our children and whatnot. And he obviously talks so kindly of mum and remembers her so fondly, and that's lovely for me to hear about his time with her and how much fun they used to have together. And being able to have that connection with him, I think, is important if I'm going to be appearing as my version, I guess, of Sarah, um, alongside him in audio.
I'm curious about how you approached the role. It was interesting. I mean, as I said, I love the Sarah Jane Smith audios you did originally, and Natalie sounds nothing like Sarah Jane Smith. And so I wasn't actually expecting there to be much vocal similarities, and yet now listening to it, there's actually a lot of intonations that are very much how your mother speaks. The way my thinking of it is she phrases things often to go a cadence to go up at the end of certain phrases, which I listen to you now. Once again, you don't sound like you naturally talk in that style that she has. So, did you do a lot of research in terms of how she spoke, and how much work did you put into trying to pick up some of her, vocal sounds?
Sure. I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you don't want to sort of imitate how someone speaks. You want to still find the performance there, but you also want people to be able to instantly hear the Sarah that they know as well. Especially just being on audio, you've not got any other visual, cues for it. So I watched a lot of her old Doctor Who's, especially Time Warrior and Pyramids of Mars, where I feel there's lots of key Sarah moments that I can kind of hang my hat on a bit. And certainly for Return of the Cybermen, I tried to work a lot on what you're saying, really, on how she speaks, how she phrases things. I think because originally Sarah is not very overly written, that mum almost had to make more of certain lines or certain moments than to make them jump off the page and make Sarah her own, really. Because in the beginning, when she first joins John Pertwee's Doctor, there's not always a huge amount to the character. So mum's kind of trying to find those moments herself, and she often has to unpack a lot of dialogue to kind of bring the audience along with her, like, putting the pieces together herself. And the lovely bantering relationship with Harry as well, which I think it was lovely to have moments of that as well, where I felt I could find a familiarity to Sarah as well. So sorry, waffling away. But to answer you, I definitely did try and watch Mum's Doctor Who's, but I also tried not to do an imitation, just because I could really. I think it would come across as a bit jarring.
But there's a cheekiness in some of the way she phrases things, which you started picking up. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of it's how she addresses Harry, but also the Doctor too. But there's just this cheeky way of phrasing things, which it's a fairly plain line, and yet there's this undercurrent of whimsy behind it, which it felt like you were getting really well.
Oh, I'm so pleased that that does come across, because I was really worried when we were first doing it that I would be a bit too reverential, really, because obviously she's my mum, she's not here anymore. I don't want to do anything to, embarrass her or do something that I think she wouldn't be happy with. So sometimes you kind of withdraw away from the fun side of it. So I'm really glad that does come across, because I think, Sarah does have a lot of fun, doesn't she, with the Doctor and other characters. So you want to bring that out.
Well, if she wasn't having fun, she wouldn't be there, you'd think.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're now cast alongside Christopher Naylor as Harry. Had you met Christopher before? How was it like, setting up this new relationship between Chris, yourself, and Tom?
Sure. I mean, I'd never met Chris before. We met in a dark, cold day in November 2019, pre-pandemic, when we were all still allowed to meet people normally at the recording studio, and we sat down on the sofa and had a nice chat. And he is very like Harry, really, or how I imagine Harry to be. He has that lovely mix of sort of masculine quality where he is strong and the hero, but he also has a softness to him as well, that sort of yin yang effect, and just a lovely personable actor. And he made me feel very comfortable immediately, and I think we managed to kind of get into that groove of the sort of brotherly, sisterly, bantery, teasing relationship that Sarah and Harry have.
Has it been nice pulling out your training and actually getting to do, you're obviously a very large creative person. You're a writer. You studied your acting. Is it nice bringing that side out now again?
Oh, honestly, it's so lovely. It makes me feel a bit emotional, really, because when I stop doing it, I feel like I stopped doing it for the right reasons. But it's still difficult, because it's not just a job; it's something that you love to do so much, and it's almost like I couldn't go to the theatre for a while because it just felt painful to watch other people doing something that you love to do so much that you don't do anymore. So it was absolutely lovely. It's been just the biggest dream, really. I feel so grateful to get to do it again, really.
I'm just curious, does your dad have any interest in hearing how you come across as Sarah Jane? Has he had a chance
Mm.
to hear it, or yeah?
No, so strange enough, so obviously I asked him, should I do this or not? Should I take on Sarah as mum, whatever? And my dad said yes. And then when it came out, my dad said to me, oh, I thought you meant that they were just going to cast you in a small part. I didn't think that you were going to be Sarah. I said to him, oh, Dad, I'm bloody asked you if it was okay. So my dad has come round now to the idea of what's actually happening. And we managed to meet up at the weekend. So I've given him the CD, and he's going to have a listen to it. So I'll be really interested to hear what my dad said, if it gets the Brian Miller seal of approval as well.
Because of course both your parents appeared in both the classic and the new series of Doctor Who, so that's a pretty cool thing to think about too. But yeah, I was just curious as to what he might thought. So I'll be interested too. I'll be watching out on Twitter.
I'll let you know.
Yes, for those unsure, so Brian Miller was in both Snake Dance and in the first Peter Capaldi story, Deep Breath, as that tramp. It's great to see them in those two roles. So you've also recorded the Third Doctor Adventure of the Gulf by Tim Foley. What was it like coming back to do a story with the Third Doctor?
Well, I mean, that was something very different, because obviously with Tom, you've got that anchor immediately. He knows the part, he is the Doctor, he's been the Doctor, he's part of that era, and it immediately kind of sucks you in almost, so there's no explanation needed. But with the Third Doctor, obviously you've got Tim Treloar as John Pertwee's Doctor, so it was a very different experience. And I was quite nervous, really, because I've still never met Tim in person. I've only ever heard him remotely from another studio, but in a way that made it easier, because he sounds so like John that I could almost close my eyes and it was like John was in the room. So it's a different experience, but it's still one that I really enjoy, and still I feel kind of gets to that same end goal where you kind of sit in your places and feel where the story's going.
So the Gulf was made in lockdown?
The Gulf was made between the lockdown, so I think it was between lockdown 2 and 3 when things had opened up a bit. So it was back in September. So I was able to go to a studio in London, and I think Tim was in a different studio, but some of the other cast were in the studio with me, so it still had a bit more of a collaborative feel than when you're doing it on your own. But no, I've never met Tim.
But Wendy Craig was in the studio with you, I believe. Was it like, I mean, Wendy Craig's a great legend of British television as well. What was it like working with her?
Oh my gosh, absolute legend. She walked in on the first day. She goes, "Oh, hello, I'm Wendy." And I thought, oh my God, like it's Wendy Craig. And obviously, I've stepped away from the business for a long time. So I'm thinking, don't it up, don't embarrass yourself. So I tried to, keep myself together and just chat to her in a normal way. And then when we'd finished on the second day, I did sort of got to her and tell her how wonderful I thought she was and how great it was to work with her. But yeah, I mean, obviously she's just fantastic. And she and the Doctor kind of have a bit of a love interest relationship, which I thought was obviously fantastic, really, because you don't normally see characters of that, that age group, I guess, being honest, who get to have the romantic moments. That was very exciting.
If you enjoyed what you heard in this clip from the Sirens of Audio podcast, be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you never miss out on another episode from us. And if you want to find out more about us, including our back catalogue of episodes, you can head over to sirensofaudio.com.